participants are now joining the Zoom webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar on the work-life balance in terms of demographic change, a tool to support intergenerational solidarity. This webinar is organized as part of the conference, The Future of Europe, which is including a series of events, and one day after International Day of Parents. We would like to, a couple of technical or like organizational issues. There are interpretation to Italian and Czech, so please speak slowly to give them time to interpreters to do their job. And we will also be you can follow discussions and post things online using the hashtag family in the EU with caps EU. And you will be able to write questions in the Q&A section, which is below, and then they will be addressed in the exchange of use time. So we're going to start with the first speaker. So Mrs. Sojdrova, welcome. She's a member of the parliament since 2014 and member of the culture, education, and also EPP coordinator. So she's been working on education, which is an important topic also for parents. So please, Mrs. Sojdrova.
My apology, I think the opening address art for Mr. Vincenzo, FAFCE president, to be made.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
Sorry, Mrs. Bassi was supposed to speak first. I just jumped to the to the policymakers. My mistake, sorry.
No, there is no problem. Thank you very much for this event. I think it is a very important start point to speak about the future of Europe. We cannot speak about the future of Europe without speaking about children and families. I will continue my introduction into Italian. In effetti, per troppo tempo si è pensato come la famiglia non avesse alcun ruolo e si è per troppo tempo pensato che la questione demografica o le questioni che attengono alla vita in
democratic issues
non avessero alcun tipo di ruolo, alcun tipo
that the family doesn't play any role. This I was thinking about.
Si tratta di questioni private.
It is true, it is about private issues,
La responsabilità dei cittadini.
but we know that there is a responsibility from the part of citizens.
La famiglia hanno direttamente o indirettamente una rilevanza di tipo pubblico.
The members in the family have also a relevant importance in the society. Today we see the consequences of this lack of consideration about the concern of the family's activities, the role that the family plays. Most of all, and it's very evident, we are living now a kind of demographic winter. There is also on the economic issues, there is quite a strong impact also. We should be concerned about solving the problem, and we should invert the trends that are going on. Europe would not have a proper future. Also, they would suffer economic consequences. There are too many inequalities. Also, the balance between the different generations. Also, the demographic issues. Because of this, so speaking about the future of Europe, we should always take into consideration and discuss the problems that are facing the families. It is good that to start as soon as possible to tackle the situation, to tackle the problems in the family. The family can play an important role. The family can have a good and positive impact. The family is not there that they look for any advantage or any purpose. They just would like to have a family, to create a family that if today we discuss about the challenges among the family members, that we understand how the problem is, what's the cause of the problem, and so that we can solve these issues. Also about the freedom that women have. Statistics are teaching us that people would like to start a new life. But this new life will start also and give a new impulse on the society. The family should not be neglected. The family should be taken care of. That's now obvious. All of this it is relevant that we put the family at the center. And that we have the conviction that the family can play an important role in civil society, especially also in the European regions, and that at least that this conference about the future of Europe makes sense. The family is the first most important virtue. We hope that with our support, we can improve the situation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bassi, for this very clear presentation. So now, Mrs. Sojdrova, now is your turn.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the chair of the association. I would like to thank FAFCE, the Federation of Catholic Family Associations in Europe, for organizing this webinar. I think that it is really important to remind us how important families are. The topic of this webinar is balancing of work and life in a time of demographic change as a tool for intergenerational solidarity. I would like to come briefly back to what we have lived, because we have lived through an unexpected and difficult year.
Ono se to velmi dotklo rodin. Vždyť to, co jsme zažili, tak vlastně rodiny se odstly ve finanční krizi, museli řešit vzdělávání, nemoci. Ale také se ukázalo, že vlastně ta pandemie, lockdown, to uzavření přineslo i něco nového, já bych řekla i něco pozitivního, protože rodiny byly mnohem více spolu. Strávili nezvykle mnoho času společně, rodiče se museli učit s dětmi a najednou byli všichni pohromadě a mnoho rodin tak zjistilo nové věci. Museli samozřejmě také řešit nemoci, péči o nemocné a bohužel také ztratili své příbuzné. Myslím, že by bylo škoda, kdybychom na to poučení z toho minulého roku zapomněli, kdybychom si neodnesli něco do budoucnosti. A co si odnáším já, nebo co si myslím, že bychom si měli odnést, že je to právě rodina, která dokáže v té krizi pomoci a podržet. překonat krizi, tu pracovní, školní. A to bychom měli mít na paměti i my jako jedinci, ale i společnost. Myslím, že si to zatím úplně neuvědomujeme. A já bych se ve svém příspěvku chtěla právě dotknout několika příkladů činnosti Evropské unie. Rodinná politika je plně v gesci členských států, ale Evropská unie vytváří díky vnitřnímu trhu, volnému prostoru pro podnikání, obchodování, cestování, služby, vzdělávání, tak vytváří i určitý tlak a podmínky pro rodiny. Na vzdělávání, nebo na to všechno pamatují i smlouvy o Evropské unii a ty právě vytváří ten prostor, ve kterém se naše rodiny nacházejí. Je to zejména, co řeší smlouvy o EU, rovnost žen a mužů a pracovně právní vztahy. Zejména tato oblast se právě rodin velmi dotýká. Zajištění důstojných podmínek pro život občanů, odměňování, sociální zabezpečení, bezpečnost, to všechno jsou podmínky, ve kterých naše rodiny žijí. Tak tedy dva příklady. Jeden, řekla bych, pozitivní a jeden, podle mého názoru, negativní. Ten pozitivní, podle mě, je směrnice o rovnováze mezi pracovním a soukromým životem rodičů a pečujících osob z roku 2019. Tato směrnice podle mého názoru v tom svém obsahu, v tom, co přináší, je pozitivní. Má jeden nedostatek a já se o něm zmíním. Reaguje na tu celoevropskou výzvu nedostatečného zastoupení žen na trhu práce, čili že ženy jsou více mezi těmi nezaměstnanými, nerovnoměrné rozdělení pečovatelských povinností, demografický vývoj a rozdíly v odměňování a také v důchodech žen a mužů. Já bych připomněla hlavní záměry této směrnice, protože je to důležité si říct, o co se vlastně ta směrnice snaží. Je to rodičovská dovolená, přináší 2 měsíce nepřenositelné rodičovské dovolené a smyslem toho je motivovat otce k čerpání této rodičovské dovolené a umožnit matkám dřívější návrat do práce. Otcovská dovolená je úplně nová věc. Některé členské státy již mají, včetně České republiky, ale nově se zavádí 10 dnů a nárok na příspěvek ve výši nemocenské dovolené podle národní úpravy. Pečovatelská dovolená, tam se uvádí minimálně 5 dnů ročně, umožňuje pečovat o příbuzného, také některé členské státy již mají. Dále nově navrhuje flexibilní pracovní úvazek, který nakonec bude si moct členská země nějakým způsobem upravit, ale už je to určitý nárok a je to zrovna něco, co pomáhá. Vyzkoušeli jsme si to v podstatě i nyní během pandemie. Zákaz diskriminace, ochrana před propuštěním, požadavky na pečovatelská zařízení. To jsou důležitá opatření, která mohou rodinám pomoci. Dokonce v recitálu se zdůrazňuje výlučná kompetence členských států při úpravě institutu manželství a toho, kdo může být považován za rodiče. Toto je plně v gesci členských států. Z hlediska národní legislativy, například České republiky, se nejvíce týká otcovské dovolené 10 dnů a zajištění individuálního nároku těch 2 měsíců rodičovské dovolené. Jenom bych připomenula, že teď probíhá v členských státech implementace. A je tedy na nás, na politicích v členských státech i na neziskovém sektoru, aby se zapojil do té diskuse, jak bude ta implementace vypadat. Já myslím, že tato směrnice vyšla vstříc právě principu subsidiarity. To znamená, řeší pouze témata, která přísluší té evropské úrovni, Řeší rovnost žen a mužů z hlediska pracovně právních vztahů, odměňování, slaďování kariéry s péčí o rodinu. Já mám výhradu v jedné věci, která je pro mě důležitá, a to, že neoceňuje mateřství a vnímá a práci maminek jako jejich nenahraditelnou roli, nenahraditelnou péči, že vlastně vnímá ženy, matky, jen jako pracovníky a snaží se zlepšit jejich postavení pouze jediným opatřením, a to, že je vrátí na trh práce. A to si myslím, že je málo. Nicméně alespoň zůstává na té kompetenci evropské a nevměšuje se do jiných věcí. Mateřství jako kariéra zatím není dostatečně uznávaná a mělo by se to změnit, ale myslím, že je dobré začít od zdola, tedy od rodinných politik, které jsou na úrovni členských států. Myslím, že je velmi obtížné očekávat, a vlastně EU k tomu nemá kompetenci, aby šla zhora. Nicméně v takovýchto iniciativách evropských by to mělo být alespoň zmíněno. A bohužel pozměňovací návrhy, které jsem v tomto měla, tady nebyly přijaty. Nicméně já oceňuji tuto směrnici a dávám ji jako příklad určitého minimálního standardu, který z hlediska Evropské unie pomáhá rodičům a nevměšuje se do jejich roli. Příklad iniciativy, kterou považuji za kontroverzní a v některých případech přímo nepřijatelné, jsou zprávy výboru FEM a také poslední iniciativa komise European Child Guarantee, tedy Evropská záruka za děti. Já bych poprosila o prezentaci, bude to stručné, nicméně jsou to 3 slajdy a já bych ráda, aby jste jako posluchači zároveň se mohli na to podívat a já budu zatím hovořit. Ta European Child Guarantee je zaměřená na to, já se dívám, jestli zatím tedy ta prezentace tam nebyla promítnutá. Já myslím, že ona tam naskočí a možná se nemusím
Sorry to interrupt you, Mrs. Sodrova. I think we are not seeing your slides.
No, právě, že je nevidíme, ale já jsem byla dohodnuta, že tam budou promítnuty. Tak uvidíme. Tak oni nejsou tak zásadní, ale byly by takové ilustrativní. Nevadí. Třeba postupně tam budou uvedeny. Tam je důležitý ten závěr, takové to srovnání, co vlastně ta záruka přináší. Zkrátka cíl je určitě chvályhodný, to znamená dostat děti ze sociálního vyloučení, tak, aby později ve svém životě osobním a pracovním mohli uspět. To je dobrý cíl. Ale já kritizuji prostředky, které se k tomu volí a ty mají jeden zásadní nedostatek. A to je, ano, už to tam nabíhá, já bych poprosila zůstat u toho druhého obrázku, to už jste na konci. Vraťme se, prosím, o jeden obrázek. Tak to byla ta první, Directive Work-Life Balance. To už jsme si řekli a teď jsme tady. EU Strategy on the Rights of the Child. A součástí této strategie je právě ta Child Guarantee. Zůstaňme prosím u tohoto obrázku a já vás potom poprosím dál. Zkrátka, tento dobrý cíl dostat děti z té chudoby, z toho vyloučení, má ten nedostatek, že porušuje princip, že tedy ty nástroje porušují princip subsidiarity a ignorují odpovědnost rodičů. Evropská unie si tady prostě bere na sebe kompetenci, právo i zodpovědnost, kterou mají především rodiče a po nich členské státy. Ono to vypadá velmi lákavě. Evropská unie nabízí podporu, prostředky pro členské státy k podpoře dětí do 18 let. Záruky zahrnují vzdělávání, péči v raném věku, vzdělání, školní aktivity, alespoň jedno zdravé jídlo denně a zdravotní péči. Tyto záruky sice nejsou povinné pro členské státy, ale zavádí se tady taková povinnost čerpat alespoň 5% na tyto aktivity z alokovaného Evropského sociálního fondu plus pro tyto cíle. Takže každá členská země, která čerpá Evropský sociální fond plus, musí 5% věnovat na tuto záruku pro děti. Komise už provedla určité pilotování tohoto programu a znovu říkám, jako cíl péče o děti je krásný. Ale podívejme se na to, co tady vidí jako 6 tematických oblastí jako svoji hlavní prioritu. A já bych poprosila teď právě ukázat ten obrázek, kde jsou ty priority. Poprosím tedy o ten obrázek, ten poslední slide. Výborně. A jako první prioritu vidí Evropská unie účast v politickém a demokratickém životě EU. No, prosím, udělejte si obrázek sami, zda tohle je skutečně to nejpodstatnější, co děti potřebují. Úkol číslo 2, nebo cíl číslo 2 je sociálně-ekonomická inkluze, bod číslo 3 je potírání násilí na dětech, bod číslo 4 je justice vstřícná k dětem, 5. bod je digitální a informační společnost, zase tak, aby děti mohly využívat, aby je chránila. A 4. je ta globální dimenze, podpora EU v rámci globální politiky. Evropská unie se tady v tomto opírá o princip 11 v rámci Evropského pilíře sociálních práv, který hovoří o tom, že děti mají právo na dostupné vzdělávání, péči a jejich dobrou kvalitu této péče a mají právo na ochranu před chudobou, před znevýhodněním a zkrátka mají právo na speciální podporu a rovnost příležitostí. Znovu říkám, nic proti dobrým cílům, které jsou zde naznačeny. Ale já se prostě ptám, kde jsou tady rodiče. Já to říkám s čistým svědomím, protože když Evropská lidová strana přijímala svůj position paper, tedy svoji politiku pro práci v Evropském parlamentu, tak jsem, přiznám se, tak trochu zatlačila a navrhla jsem, že tam musí být práva rodičů, že prvním zájmem dítěte je péče jejich rodičů, je zůstat v rodině, má právo na rodiče, tedy podle úmluvy o právech dítěte, právem dítěte je mít oba rodiče. A tyto rodiče mají svou zodpovědnost. Já si myslím, že je velmi zhoubné, jestli Evropská unie se bude snažit oddělit děti od svých rodičů a přejímat tu zodpovědnost za rodiče a členské státy. Je dobře, že Evropská unie připomíná tu situaci mnoha dětí, které se nacházejí v ohrožení chudoby, jsou vystaveni násilí, ať už fyzickému, anebo třeba prostřednictvím internetu. To všechno je strašně důležité, ale vždycky na prvním místě ten první zájem dětí je být v dobré rodině, pomáhat rodičům, rodinám naplňovat jejich funkci. Říkám to proto také, protože ještě není úplně rozhodnuto. Komise přijala tento návrh v březnu letošního roku a členské státy si k němu vytváří pozici. Čili máme šanci i prostřednictvím tlaku členských států ovlivnit tu výslednou podobu a připomenout na evropské úrovni, že tu odpovědnost mají a musí mít rodiče a členské státy. A na závěr mi dovolte říct to, čím jsme se hodně zabývali i ve spolupráci s FAFCE, ve spolupráci s Centrem pro rodinu, s paní doktorkou Ujiskou, a to jsou ty různé zprávy výboru FEM. Bohužel tady z tohoto výboru Evropského parlamentu nemůžeme čekat podporu, protože z tohoto výboru vychází zprávy, které jsou naprosto v rozporu se subsidiaritou. A jako posledním takovým mementem je zpráva kterou odsouhlasil výbor před minulém týdnu, ještě není překlad do různých jazyků, zatím máme pouze anglickou verzi této zprávy a je to zpráva o situaci sexuálních a reprodukčním zdraví a právech na úrovni EU v rámci zdraví žen. Péče o zdraví žen. Musím říct, že tahle zpráva je opravdu pro mě naprosto nepřijatelná a troufám si říct, že je nejen v rozporu se subsidiaritou, v rozporu se základními lidskými právy, ale i se zdravým rozumem. Budeme určitě, a už jsme zahájili činnost s mými kolegy poslanci, nejsem sama, kdo tuto zprávu kritizuje a je to Miriam Lexman, s kterou jsme zorganizovali takovou akci, oslovili jsme poslance nejprve v naší frakci, abychom protestovali proti této zprávě. Tady totiž už nemá ani smysl dávat pozměňovací návrhy. Shodli jsme se na tom, že jediným správným řešením je tuto zprávu odmítnout. Už podle názvu je ta zpráva mimo prostě kompetence Evropské unie a neměli bychom vůbec takovou zprávu přijímat ani na té parlamentní úrovni diskutovat. Máme diskutovat to, co se týká rovnosti žen a mužů, z hlediska jejich sociální rovnosti, pracovně právních stavů a máme podporovat zdravé prostředí pro děti, rodiny. Tolik tedy k tomu mému vystoupení v této chvíli. Já se těším na to, že zde zazní další příspěvky. Mám radost ze všech účastníků. Vidím svého bývalého kolegu Luigi Morganu, kterého moc zdravím do Itálie a moc ráda na něj vzpomínám a chci mu říct, že mi tady chybí v Evropském parlamentu. Ráda vidím Marii Ouliskou, ráda vidím samozřejmě také Alexandra Vondru, který podpořil tento webinář, takže moc děkujeme a těším se na diskuzi a děkuji za vaši práci.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sojdrova. So now it's the turn of Mr. Vondra, who's a member of the Environment Committee and substitute in Libe and was formerly Minister of Defense in the Czech Republic and MEP since 2019. Please, Mr. Vondra.
Tak ano, dobrý den, já vás všechny zdravím. Také děkuji FAFCE za uspořádání tohohle webináře, který jsem rád podpořil, ačkoliv není mou doménou já zkusím tady odstranit, abych neslyšel tu angličtinu, ale nevím jak. Přestože rodinná politika není mou doménou, já jsem ve výboru pro životní prostředí a také ve výboru vlastně musím říct, že souhlasím se vším, co tady Míša Šojdrová říkala, zejména ten odstrašující případ vlastně těch priorit, kdy na prvním místě je cíl, aby to dítě jako se začalo účastnit politického života v Evropské unii co nejdřív. To si jako myslím, že jako hraničí prostě dokonce s tou naší temnou vzpomínkou na komunisty, který jako ty děti jako zatahovali už do těch jiskřiček a pionýra z politických důvodů. Ale já se odpíchnu v tom svém příspěvku trošku od jiného tématu, který je také dnešním vlastně úkolem a k řešení, a to je problém demografický, kde vůbec bych řekl, že první cestou k jeho řešení je si vůbec připustit, že se jedná o problém. Jo, už si to uvědomuje i Čína, kterou do její krize dovedl totalitní sociální inženýring v minulosti a je nejvyšší čas, aby potřebnou reflexi provedl Evropský západ. Představa, že náš problém vyřešíme imigrací, hraničí s civilizační sebevraždou. Protože civilizace, která se nedokáže nebo dokonce nechce reprodukovat, je odsouzena k zániku.
Snahy některých středoevropských států, které si tu totalitní minulost pamatují, řešit demografický problém nikoli v migrací, ale podporou rodin, se bohužel, zvláště na západě, setkával a setkává s nepochopitelnou reakcí, kdy tyto snahy jsou označovány za antifeministické, za etnonacionalistické, nebo někteří dokonce sahají až k nacistickým paralelám. Myslím, že tohle nemocné myšlení a smýšlení je zapotřebí rázně odmítnout hned na začátku. Je také potřeba, a to říkám s tou svou zkušeností z výboru ENVI, rázně odmítnout antinatalismus některých radikálních klimaaktivistů, kteří chtějí ekosféru chránit ne pro děti, ale před dětmi a potažmo před lidmi vůbec. V situaci, kdy porodnost v žádné ze zemí Evropské unie nedosahuje ani hranice nutné pro udržení stávající populace, vyvolávají tito šílenci v lidech pocit viny za to, že mají děti. Ideologie, která si neváží lidského života, které chtějí změnit podstatu lidství a přeprogramovat člověka, končí zle. S tím máme ve střední Evropě jistou zkušenost a nakonec to vidíme teď i na případu té Číny. Musíme se proto víc zaměřit i na výchovu, která nezastupitelným způsobem formuje lidství a vede člověka k odpovědnosti k životu, včetně samozřejmě i odpovědnosti k životnímu prostředí. A v neposlední řadě je demografická krize také problém ekonomický. Nejsme tady ropnou velmocí. Evropský sociální stát je založený na tom, že víc lidí pracuje, než nepracuje. A jak se tento křehký poměr v důsledku nízké porodnosti otáčí, křadne i sociální stát. Vznikají problémy, které je potřeba urgentně řešit. Co bude s důchody, kdo se bude starat o seniory a tak dál. Řešit tento problém imigrací je vážné rozhodnutí, protože v imigrantech nepřichází jen zaměnitelná pracovní síla. Přicházejí lidé se vším všudy, se svou kulturou, zvyklostmi, náboženství a je s tím třeba počítat. A teď už k řešení. V centru řešení musí být rodina. Cílem není vrátit se před první světovou válkou, během níž došlo poprvé k masivnímu pracovnímu zapojení žen. V současné době je pro většinu rodin nevyhnutelné, aby se na ekonomickém zajištění rodiny podíleli oba manželé. A mnohé ženy mají své vlastní kariérní ambice, které si přejí s rodinou skloubit. To vytváří také nový prostor pro otce, kteří se mnohdy na denní péči o děti a domácnost podílejí rovnocenným způsobem. A já to vidím i doma u dětí svých jako dědeček. Moderní demografická rodina politika musí tyto skutečnosti reflektovat. Nabídnout mužům i ženám co nejlepší možnosti skloubit pracovní i rodinný život. A samozřejmě umožnit i to, aby jeden z rodičů, obvykle, ale ne nutně žena, mohl pečovat o rodinu na plný úvazek, pokud si to přeje, nebo je to potřeba, například u mnohodětných rodin nebo dětí se speciálními potřebami. Dobrá společnost se dokáže postarat o své nejstarší členy. Dobrá společnost si váží stáří a jeho zkušenosti. Již lze, notabene, využít i při výchově. V dobré společnosti neumírají staří lidé odvržení a s pocitem, že jsou na obtíž. Musíme podpořit lidi v tom, aby si mohli dovolit péči o své rodiče a prarodiče v domácím prostředí. Každý z nás intuitivně tuší, že právě tak doma a v kruhu svých nejbližších by rád svůj život dožil do konce. Paradoxně k tomu dnes mají lidé blíž v chudších částech světa než té nejbohatší. Měli bychom toto učinit jednou z našich priorit, protože ať chceme nebo ne, této etapě života se nevyhneme. Nevymyslíme tu nic revolučního. Rozhodně není řešením ani přenášet kompetence v rodinné politice na úroveň EU. Naším cílem by mělo být naopak podpořit dobré a prověřené modely, které vyplývají ze samotné podstaty našeho lidství. Protože všichni jsme se narodili a všichni jednou zemřeme. Děkuji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vondra. So the next speaker is Mr. Zulo, MEP of the Renew Group since 2014, and also member in the Internal Committee and the Women's Rights Committee. Please, Mr. Zulo.
Buongiorno a tutti, grazie dell'invito. Oggi stiamo parlando di un tema fondamentale, che è quello dello sviluppo della società europea e della possibilità di dare a ogni cittadino di realizzarsi sia dal punto di vista familiare e contemporaneamente anche dal punto di vista lavorativo. I miei colleghi hanno fatto un quadro molto ampio di quella che è la situazione e di quelle che sono delle possibili soluzioni per riuscire a raggiungere questo obiettivo, anche per il benessere di tutti i cittadini europei. Ci tengo a precisare quelle che dal mio punto di vista dovrebbero essere alcuni aspetti fondamentali da parte del legislatore per poi mettere in campo delle azioni che siano dal punto di vista operativo realmente risolutive, quindi dare la possibilità, per esempio, oggi ai giovani, a chi ha voglia, ha il desiderio di fare una famiglia, di mettersi nelle condizioni di poterla fare, poterla realizzare. E prima di tutto, come è stato anticipato, dobbiamo entrare anche un po' nel merito di quello che è il concetto di... Okay.
And there's no interpretation to English either.
Ok. Bisogna mettere nelle condizioni. Sorry, I don't listen the message. Okay. So just to main concept from my point of view. First is the concept of family. And now the idea of family is very large. There is a monoparental family. There is a family with a child with some special needs, or with a new component, a new number of big number of large components, larger number of component. And so the norms is a male that is sorry, I some problem to speak in English, so is if it's possible to resolve the translate problem. Otherwise, I wait.
Maybe just try to speak in Italian and let's see if the English translation starts again.
Ok. Scusate. Sì. E quindi, dicevo, dal punto di vista dell'idea di famiglia, bisogna prestare attenzione al fatto che oggi le famiglie possono essere composte in modo molto diverso, quindi dalle famiglie monoparentali, piuttosto che con la disponibilità con la presenza di bambini che hanno particolari necessità, piuttosto che la presenza dei nonni. E quindi credo che sia fondamentale che il legislatore, quando andrà a definire le varie norme, le direttive che possono dare un supporto alla famiglia, le scriva in modo tale che tutte queste casistiche possono essere contemplate, facciano parte di quello che è un aspetto più ampio possibile di definizione di famiglia, per non creare degli squilibri. Il secondo aspetto riguarda la vita lavorativa. Alcune soluzioni sono già state presentate e riguardano per esempio la flessibilità del lavoro, i congedi parentali, e sono sicuramente soluzioni ottime, ma credo che particolare attenzione debba essere posta a come queste azioni poi hanno ricadute sulle persone, sul contesto in cui vanno prese in considerazione. Per esempio, se parliamo di telelavoro, non è solo fornendo un computer, una connessione alla persona, non solo questo dà la possibilità di poi lavorare da casa, ma ci deve essere in qualche modo una preparazione culturale sia sul fronte del datore di lavoro che della persona, del lavoratore, dove entrambi devono essere in grado di creare delle condizioni ottimali di lavoro, di comunicazione durante questo lavoro a distanza, e anche di in qualche modo misurazione dei risultati affinché poi tutta la filiera sia soddisfacente e quindi si possa utilizzare una soluzione del genere come possibilità poi di poter meglio godere del tempo a disposizione e quindi conciliare aspetti della vita diversi come il lavoro appunto e la famiglia. Un altro esempio può essere quello della flessibilità sull'orario lavorativo, e tutti questi aspetti necessitano da parte degli Stati membri di una predisposizione, un'accoglienza della direttiva che poi permetta un'implementazione concreta che realmente possa dare dei frutti, delle soluzioni, sapendo che ad oggi il contesto europeo è molto vario e quindi questa sensibilità yes, ok. Quindi giungendo al termine, sapendo che il contesto europeo è un contesto vario, dove dal punto di vista culturale i diversi Paesi membri ok, please. Bisogna agire in modo tale che appunto questa diversità culturale non crei delle disparità sempre più accentuate. In questo tutte le politiche di inclusione sociale oggi già in atto, e possibilmente saranno i canali attraverso cui la politica europea potrà trovare la migliore espressione, richiederà dei controlli molto frequenti e puntuali, in modo tale che queste politiche poi riescano a essere concretizzate in ogni singolo Stato membro nel miglior modo possibile. Vi ringrazio per questa opportunità, mi scuso per la difficoltà tecnica della comunicazione, spero che sia stato comprensibile e vi auguro un buon lavoro.
Thank you very much for your presentation, despite the technical issues. So now there is a time for discussion. There were 2 questions that were posted in the Q&A. And I don't know if we can start with the first one, which was posted in Czech, and I have translated, so excuse me if it's not a perfect translation. It was done with a translator. Hello, by Mrs. Prochaskova. Hello, may I ask how we actually define and will define the family in the future? Do we see the family as the cornerstone of Christian Europe? I don't know who of the speakers maybe would like to.
Adesso finalmente la risento. Sì, prima no. Prima assolutamente no. Prego.
If you can, I can answer. I can answer to this question.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Bassi. Mr.
So, I think that it's not when we talk about the future of Europe, when we talk about also each issue that we arise during this discussion, it's useless to speak about definition of family, because we are very much more concentrated to the function of the family and its capacity to generate lives and services. For this reason, I think that if we want to put the family at the top, to the top of the agenda, we should concentrate to the function of the family, and the fact that the family can bring increase a concord to the common goods. And of course, we are, for example, in my case, FAFCE is the Federation of the European Catholic Associations. So we are inspired by our faith, but now we are talking about the function of the family. And for this reason, we can use also realistic and not confessional words to explain this essential function. I think that in the past, we spent a long time just having discussion, having discussions and maybe arguing on the definition, but we have to get out from this kind of battle, and we hope to put the family at the center of the society, and because it's useless for the common good to divide the society on the function of the family.
Thank you very much. I totally agree with that. And on top of that, it's not an EU competence, so it's actually, it will change anything because the EU cannot decide on that. It's a national competence. There was another question as well from Mr. Casar, also saying, if we accept Christ is the only hope for Europe, won't faith help dialogue simplify our questions and relationship in terms of equality, dignity, democracy, in human rights, in freedom of speech and reconciliation? Isn't it better for rediscovering the Trinity in Europe roots and seeing the global future as a civilization of love, whatever the politics? I don't know, this is probably connected to the question that was just mentioned before. I don't know if Mr. Bassi you want to address this, or?
Well, just one word. It is true, I agree with you, because the treaties are very clear. The family is not European competence, but the family, as it was said before, family issues have also an impact for economical reasons. That's demographic economical reasons. So I think that we have to be able to to speak about the families implementing European principles. And I'm sure that now in Europe we need more we need more communities and less we need more communities and less rules of law. I mean, we need also rules of law, but what now we notice that in order to think about the future of Europe, we have to start not from new treaties, but we need more communities. And if we do not think that the communities are made up by families, of course, we cannot solve these issues. Europe will have a future with communities, and the communities are made up families. That's why also families are indirectly are an European relevance.
And if I may add something, definitely, I think what is important is to do what is family mainstreaming, really try to think about what is the impact of families in every policy. And this is something that has been definitely not done in economic policies when they're talking about all the financial directives or even environmental issues. They never consider families. And Mr. Vondra will agree with me. It's really that we're talking about people, individuals, but we never consider family actually as a unit that can definitely contribute and has to be considered. So unfortunately, we have only 2 more minutes for this session. I don't know if anybody has a quick question for the MEPs or we move to the next session. Okay, then if there's no more questions, we can move to the next session, which is dedicated to civil society, the voice of the civil society, and Benedict, who's policy manager in FAFCE, can start presenting her speech.
Thank you very much, Alaya. Can everyone hear me clearly? Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for all the members of the European Parliament for their very inspiring speeches and the different elements they raised, and especially the work they do at the European Parliament. Coming from the perspective of the FAFCE, the Federation of Catholic Family Associations in Europe, we are an umbrella associations that work to carry the voice of families at the European level. I just today, since we speak about work-life balance, parents, and intergenerational solidarity, I wanted to stress one subject with regard to the situations of mothers, especially in the workplace, and the obstacles and the discrimination that they may face. We saw it during this context of lockdown and then of the COVID-19 pandemic, that it became even more difficult to balance work life and the different care work that parents have to do, and especially mothers, since we know that statistically mothers produce more unpaid care work. So the question here is not a question if it should be more or less, but rather the question is it even possible to be a parent and working, to be full-time worker and full-time parents nowadays. We published early this year a white paper on protecting women from maternal mobbing. Maternal mobbing, it's an expression that basically tackle the issue of the discriminations that mothers experience in the workplace, which means that, of course, when women present a wish to become mothers, become pregnant, or are mothers, they will face several negative perceptions from their workplace, in terms of expected focus, proficiency, commitment towards a career. These negative perceptions will lead to different discriminations, be they the refusal to recruit first women that want to have children or already mothers or pregnant women. Then after coming back from maternity leave, women experience as well, mothers can experiment as well changes in terms of responsibilities and the different their work contract. It can include as well harassment, be it physical or mental, too heavy workload, or being put aside and in comparison to other workers that don't have a family on the excuse that they are not completely 100% in their work. And we even have a situation of dismissal of working mothers, be it very formal or informal, through mental pressure and psychological harassment, leading women to quit simply their workplace because of the pressure they face. So this question of mobbing, maternal mobbing, so the discrimination women face in the workplace, is a violence against women. It's a mental violence against mothers. And it's, I think, crucial for at the EU level to at least first acknowledge this issue. It has already been the case in 2018 with the resolution of the European Parliament that regretted the discrimination that many mothers faced in their workplace. So what are the solutions of those discrimination that many mothers experience in their everyday life? Is first to adopt a flexible labor policy where the needs as a person for its family is included as well in all the work sphere, and a comprehensive family policy, which means that we cannot always have separated private life and work life. People that have a family cannot stop to be parents when they enter the job in the morning. And it's not because they are parents that they are less efficient workers. It's something as well very important to stress in my point of view. So more precisely, what are the different measures that the European Union can support, since it's a member state competence? First, to recognize this issue of maternal mobbing, and as well to support working mothers through flexible working arrangements, increase in terms of maternity leave and parental leave, flexible working hours, possibility to telework, breastfeeding, many possibilities. Yet, I will just very quickly, before ending this intervention, mention the fact that it cannot only go one way, which means that if we support working mothers that work professionally, we cannot just give up on mothers that chose to take care of their children as a full-time work, because we need to mention that again and repeat again and again that unpaid care work is work done by mothers, and mothers that decide to work full-time for their family, for their children, should not become second-class citizens. And we need to legally recognize the value of the unpaid care work of families, and consider that the different breaks that a woman will choose to take to care for her children are a work that she produced and should be considered in the calculations of the pension entitlements. And overall, I think it's crucial as well to grant working mothers, stay-at-home mothers, and women in general, the financial and the economical, mental, and cultural freedom of choice regarding how they want to organize their work-life balance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benedict. So the next speaker is the president of the Czech families, large families, family union, sorry. Mrs. Ojecka, I don't know if I pronounce your name correctly. Please, you may present.
Hezké dobré odpoledne, dámy a pánové. Já jsem velice ráda, že se uskuteční konečně záměr paní europoslankyně Šojdrové, která tady s touto myšlenkou původně už skoro před 2 lety přišla. A moc děkuji všem, kteří se k tomu záměru připojili, v neposlední řadě panu europoslanci Vondrovi. Já bych se chtěla zamyslet nad tématem, nad agendou rovných příležitostí mužů a žen na trhu práce, protože myslím, že tato agenda neuvěřitelným způsobem ovlivňuje rodinnou politiku členských států, zejména v České republice. Snaha o rovnost na trhu práce je bezesporu legitimní a dopředu bych chtěla zdůraznit, že ji nechci ani v nejmenším zpochybnit. Jde mi ale o dnešní pojetí rovných příležitostí. Pokud dnes řekneme rovné příležitosti a opatření k nim vedoucí, vybaví se nám cílová skupina ženy, matky malých dětí, dneska i muži, často čím dál tím víc a v poslední době i pečující o závislého člena rodiny. A k tomu 3 okruhy opatření. Větší zapojení otců do péče, dostatečná nabídka služeb péče o děti a flexibilní formy profesního života. Co je ale pro mě naprosto nevyhovující je, že společným jmenovatelem současných snah o rovné příležitosti je odbřemenit ženu jako majoritní vykonavatelku neplacené práce v rodině. Tato práce je ale břemenem jen z pohledu trhu práce. Na výchovně vzdělávací práci se můžeme dívat i jako na příležitost pro přenos hodnotových vzorců. Nezastupitelnou příležitost pro vytváření vztahu, jednoduše jako velmi užitečnou práci ve prospěch všech. Nejde tedy podle mého názoru především o to, zbavit ženy tohoto břemene a rozložit je na více nositelů, ať už muže, veřejné služby, zaměstnavatele, ale jde především o ocenění této práce postoji, klimatem i finančně, a to tak, aby se její vykonávání umožnilo. Stručně řečeno, nevidím problém v pohlaví, ale ve vykonávání neplacené práce v rodině. Pokud chceme na úrovni Evropské unie opravdu rovné příležitosti, potom bychom měli vynakládat úsilí nejen na uznání rovnosti mužů a žen, ale měli bychom vynakládat úsilí především na rovné postavení těch, kteří pečují a umožnit jim, aby pečovat mohli v té míře, jak sami chtějí a současně, aby jako pečovatelé byli i oceněni. Péče o rodinu není soukromá záležitost, ale přinejmenším stejně tak společensky nutná práce jako účast na trhu práce. Splnění těchto požadavků ale není možné bez ocenění rodiny jako zdroje prosperity společnosti na úrovni EU a národních států. A to není úkol politiky zaměstnanosti, jako je tomu dosud. Agenda rovných příležitostí je součástí politiky zaměstnanosti. Myslím, že je to úkol celospolečenský, realizovaný potom opatřeními národních rodinných politik. A politika zaměstnanosti by tento úkol měla respektovat a především o něm vůbec vědět. O jaké konkrétní opatření se jedná? Za prvé, umožnit svobodnou volbu skloubení neplacené a placené práce, zejména dostatečnou nabídkou zkrácených a flexibilních forem práce. Říkám to jako Češka, kde Česká republika má jednu z nejvyšších zaměstnaností žen matek, dětí starších 3 let. Ovšem zkrácené úvazky z důvodu neplacené práce nesmí znevýhodňovat, tak jak je tomu dosud. Snížený výdělek musí být dotován do výše mediánu průměrné mzdy po určitou dobu podle možností národních států. Za druhé musí být zohledněno dorovnání sníženého výdělku do výše budoucího důchodu, tedy snížený výdělek, nesmí mít dopad na budoucí výši důchodu. A pracovní pozice, které budou vykonávány na zkrácený úvazek z důvodu neplacené práce, musí umožnit kariérní růst. To znamená, nebavíme se o nějakých nízkokvalifikovaných pracech. To vše předpokládá, že stát musí se podílet na nesení více nákladů zaměstnavatelů, protože neplacená práce je vykonávána v zájmu udržitelného rozvoje společnosti, tedy i Evropské unie, a ne v zájmu okamžitého působení zaměstnavatele. Na závěr zbývá otázka, jaký přínos by byl z takto pojatých rovných příležitostí, které by oceňovaly neplacenou práci vykonávanou v rodině. Uznání neplacené práce by především zvýšilo spokojenost lidí. V České republice je rodina nejpreferovanější hodnotou v porovnání s penězi, prací, přáteli a volným časem. Vím o dalších státech Evropské unie, kde tomu tak je stejně. Za další, uznání neplacené práce by se zásadním pozitivním způsobem dotklo pečujících žen, zejména matek malých dětí, které v současné době ztrácí během rodičovské dovolené zdravé sebevědomí a dostávají se do sociálního vyloučení. Z pohledu trhu práce by neztráceli zdravé sebevědomí, které je podmínkou udržení zaměstnatelnosti. Uznání neplacené práce by pomohlo zaměstnavatelům uvědomit si, jaké dovednosti se prohlubují neplacenou prací a mohly by tyto dovednosti lépe využívat. Uznání neplacené práce by pravděpodobně vedlo k vyššímu zapojení žen do řídících funkcí a do politického života, protože by mohly očekávat lepší podmínky pro harmonizaci rodiny a zaměstnání. Ale především by se tímto krokem vytvořilo klima, které by mladým lidem umožnilo lépe vnímat přínos založit rodinu. Děkuji vám za pozornost.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And now it's the time for the next speaker, Mrs. Maroncelli.
Hello, good afternoon now. Thank you for the invitation and for your attention. I would like especially to thank my Czech colleague for having said many things that I completely agree upon. What is complicated for parents with 1 or 2 children gets very difficult for parents with more children. A simple concept that is completely ignored by decision makers. This is why our association, our confederation, the European Large Family Confederation, was created to tell people what is it about. I can tell you stories about mothers of large families having to quit their jobs because they could not get part-time. The situation has got much worse during the pandemic. In Italy, 96,000 mothers had to leave their jobs in 2020, according to Save the Children. There were 37,000 in 1929. So our research made by FAFCE through the measures taken during the pandemic into 9 European countries showed that nowhere the number of depending children and the rate of dependency was taken into account. Teleworking and parental leaves were the only 2 measures adopted, but parental leave was not given to those who could work online, making very difficult for working parents of many children to deal with the situations. You can easily imagine how it could be with 2, 3, 4 small children. The specific difficulties experienced by large families' parents are ignored, probably because of the small number of large families still existing in Europe. Only the 13% of families with children are large families, less than 8% in Italy. But it's also true that the small number of large families is due to the growing obstacles that society puts in the way of those wanting to have more children than the normal number. In time of demographic crisis, large families live the paradox of representing a key solution to fill the demographic gap, but they experience a growing number of obstacles to live their life. Fiscal policy on wages has forced families to the dual income model, and women are called to enter massively into the labor market. There's no recognition of the unpaid care work they do every day at home. A working woman, I mean a woman who works outside the house for money, as I was told by a businesswoman, needs to go to the hairdresser, needs new clothes, a babysitter, and so on. She moves the market. That's why she is very interesting. Working is definitely a good thing for a woman, for many reasons, of course, for women's autonomy, self-esteem, gender equality, but no structural measure has been taken to help her, nor her man, to recognize and live their private life accordingly, to give time for maternity, childhood, fatherhood, for establishing strong relationships and building a family. These are values and meanings that we consider fundamental for human beings, for our well-being and our deepest meanings in life. In the general work organization, private life has a little room. We see a kind of religion coming up at the moment called workism that put work at the first place in a person's life. Work as a means to define one's own identity is becoming a hungry God to whom we are called to devote our life. A strong relationship, a family, children, or all parents to look after become only inconvenience for a person's career. And more people choose to have less children or no children at all to find or to keep their job. So it's time to think if this is the life that we really want to live. And it's also time that the labor market should overcome the logic of the linear growth of the classical economy, of the linear economy, more productivity to make the market grow. Maybe it's time for a new Green Deal and to embrace a kind of a circular economy model, even for for working organization, where sharing comes into action and each work is valuable, even those done by parents unpaid at home. It's time for the whole society to take a shared responsibility for the birth of the children and their development, helping those that wish to have children, because nobody should ever be obliged to have them for the sake of the whole community. We have to think about new forms of labor market where one pops in and out during different times of lives. We need more flexibility. We don't have to change families to fit work rules. We have to change work to fit into families. How? There are good practices. Tailor-suit opportunities are already available, as the family audit experience made in the province of Trento can easily demonstrate. What we need, though, is a strong political step to put families and children in the heart of society and of the economic system as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Maroncelli. I think you really pointed a lot of questions, and I really like the connection that you did between the circular economy, the Green Deal, and the families. And this is everything that the Commission wants to hear now. It's about the Green Deal, so let's also include the families also in that discussion.
Yes.
So the last speaker is Victor Petulla, who is the president of the European Parents Association. So please, Mr. Petulla.
Thank you very much, Soraya. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much to FAFCE for inviting me to participate in this panel. since its foundation in 1985 as an umbrella association for national and regional federations of parents associations in Europe, EPA has tried to support the creation of parents' network, fostering the cooperation and exchanges of good practices between its members. The main purpose of EPA is to represent and give to parents a powerful voice in the development of educational and social policies at European level. EPA aims to promote the active participation of parents and the recognition of their central place as the primary responsible of the education of their children. We are really convinced that parents are the primary educators. They are not only the first educators chronologically, but also the most impacting agents in the education of their children. This has been more evident than ever during the pandemic. During several weeks or even months, schools have been forced to close their doors. In this context, teachers have tried to do their best, but they have been very limited by the extraordinary circumstances. So parents have been forced to move to the front line. This situation has shifted the focus to the urgent need to achieve a real balance between family and work that allows parents to play their role as first educators. In consequence, adequate public policies are needed to balance family and work. Therefore, governments and companies must develop new policies to achieve this, of course for women, but also for men. Also, adequate parental training programs need to be developed in order to allow both parents to acquire the needed parental skills. In this aspect, there is still the open issue of the recognition of these skills. In this sense, I'm firmly convinced that in our society, we must stop once again and rethink what are the main bases of parental action in order to collaborate effectively in the reevaluation of the role of the father. I propose here 3 objectives to move towards healthy fatherhood: increasing his presence in the family home, increasing the knowledge of his own family, and increasing the quality of the support that a father is able to provide to his partner and to their children. I am sure that we need to develop new initiatives to help all those men who are willing to effectively carry out their parental tasks, to find valuable criteria that will help them to get involved, get excited, and behave like loving, fair, and upright fathers. Recently, United Nations Women pointed out the necessity of implementing paid parental leave for both parents. We should keep in mind that around 90 million children under 1 year of age live in places where the father is not allowed to a single day of paid leave to care for them. Nearly 2/3 of babies in this age group worldwide, according to a recent UNICEF analysis, live in the 92 countries that lack national policies guaranteeing the paid parental leave of men. It is impossible to be a real father if you cannot manage to be near your children. A father needs to be in his house, in his home, the sufficient amount of time. It is true that the quality of time spent can mitigate to some extent the lack of quantity. However, believing this too much often prevents us from realizing that the quality of time is usually directly related to quantity. What is more, there are things, especially in the field of human relations, that demand our time, in particular related to building strong relationships, learning, educating. These things can only come up for a great deal of time. A father who wants to be proud of doing his homework well should spend time with his children, daily, intense, and full of content. Finally, the father should focus on sharing and working in close collaboration with his partner most of the time. If you want your educational actions to leave an imprint in your children, you must work side by side with your partner. There are many excellent parenting models, but a father who wants to be successful in his task must build his own model, constantly founding it and always complementing it with recommendations and actions of his partner. All these aspects require adequate financing. If we believe that families build the future of Europe, the future of our society, we must demand funding aligned with this view. In consequence, to work together towards sustainable societies, EPA promotes parents as key stakeholders in social and educational policies. We firmly believe that all these policies should include the parents' perspective to be effective. Before finishing, I would like to remember you that parents need continuous support. Please don't blame active parents for impacting on the education and life of their children. Rather, help all parents to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor, for your presentation. I think it's very good. You emphasize the role of fathers, and you as a father of numerous children, you know what you're talking about, being also actively involved. So there are some questions in the box that any of the speakers can answer. Recent research shows that using paternity leave leads to lower family fertility. Fathers realize how much work caring for little children is and want less children than before. Are you sure that spreading paternity leave will not increase the demographic problem? This is a very good question. Anybody wants to answer?
Maybe I can give you from our point of view of large families. Large families see very big participation of fathers in the family. So I think it's actually vice versa. Of course, those that are not willing to have children will find this a better reason not to have them, but I don't think it has to do with fertility anyway.
Okay. There is another question here. Isn't the deepest function of the family to prove the primacy of love for life, to be able to mature, to grow, and to flower? I don't know if any of the speakers want to answer this question.
Maybe if you want, from a family perspective, I can step in. Of course, the family has this beautiful function of doing for free a very good quality service of taking care for their children. Parents do a great job for society, and all of that for free. So I think, yes, of course, one of the main function of parents is to educate their children and to make them grow, not only in terms of knowledge. That's why education is not only about school, but as well about parenting, but to grow to become responsible adults, and maybe later on as well to start their own family.
Okay, thank you very much for the response. I actually have a question and a remark for the speakers, which is something when I was working formerly in Make Mothers Matter, I was dealing with all these issues. And what I realized is that what you mentioned, Victor, in the parental leave and paternity leave, I mean, until the Work-Life Balance Directive was adopted, there will not be paid paternity leave in all European countries. So imagine the rest of Europe, of the world. But what is also, I found very, very unfair is that it's only people who are only fathers who have an employee status who actually can really enjoy this. And there's a big majority of people who are freelancers who don't have a contract, an employment contract. So all these people cannot take paternity leave. And we actually checked all European countries, and I didn't see any country that was given. In any case, very few paternity leave. So it means that if you have to choose between having your company and spending time with your children, because the society will not pay any time off. So I don't know if this is something that you also consider, that it's only covering people who are employees,
absolutely
freelancers. And this topic is not discussed at European level.
Absolutely, Olaya, I fully agree with you. We don't only have very big differences between countries, but also great differences between people in the same country, depending on their kind of employment and so on. So I think this should be considered in order to give equal opportunities to all the parents in order to have this parental leave that is completely necessary for their family and for their children. Yes, I completely agree with you.
I don't know if anybody wants to comment or say something or ask questions.
Hello, can I answer? Já bych také reagovala. Hello?
Sure, of course,
Hello?
please. This is
Mohla bych reagovat?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Yes. Já bych ráda reagovala na tyto panelisty, kteří vystoupili. Jednak je tady to ocenění rodičů a té neplacené práce, o které hovořila paní doktorka Oujestská. A sice tam, kde by docházelo k posílení těch zkrácených úvazků, tak se musí doplácet do toho průměrného příjmu, případně doplácení na důchody. Naprosto souhlasím. A ono to souvisí s tím, na co vy jste se, paní moderátorko, ptala, a to je ta otcovská dovolená OSVČ. Zkrátka tam, kde se ten stát rozhodne, že chce podpořit ty rodiče a umožnit jim se vyrovnat s těmi handicapy, které mají, tak musí to doplatit z veřejných zdrojů. A jsou členské státy, které to dělají. Víme dobře, že takové opatření má například Rakousko, které právě do penzijního pojištění doplácí těm rodičům, kteří mají, no, zejména matkám, ale rodičům, kteří se rozhodnou, že jsou ti, kteří se starají o ty děti a přitom mají třeba zkrácený úvazek, tak jim doplácí potom do toho důchodového pojištění, prostě, nebo do toho důchodového, do toho příjmu v rámci důchodu. Takže jsou tady příklady členských států a dobré praxe, které už se dějí a skutečně, pokud to myslíme vážně, tak jiná cesta není, než podpořit ty rodiče touto formou. Naprosto souhlasím, že otcové matky, kteří jsou na OSVČ, bývají často opomenuti, ale v rámci té směrnice work-life balance je doporučení členským státům, aby to řešili právě i pro OSVČ. My jsme na ně nezapomněli. Já osobně jsem tam dávala pozměňovací návrh. A pokud se týká toho, co říkal kolega Viktoria Petuja, co se týká výuky rodičů, takže je nemáme za to kritizovat. No naopak, já jsem to ocenila, že rodiče vzali na sebe tu odpovědnost a prostě pomáhali dětem při výuce. Mě by zajímalo jeho zkušenost, jestli i on si uvědomil, jak těžké to učitelé mají. Protože myslím, že řada rodičů si v době pandemie uvědomila, jak je důležitá ta škola a jak těžkou roli někdy učitelé mají. Takže byla to i taková, myslím, zpětná vazba pro ty rodiče, že možná daleko více společnost bude oceňovat i tu roli učitelů. A jinak moc děkuji za ty všechny příspěvky.
May I add anything? Of course, I agree with all the things which have been said. I want just to give my contribution in a couple of words. I think that it's important also to promote, to support the creation of a stronger network of families, because it's impossible. I mean, I think also according to the subsidiary principle, it's necessary to allow the family to take on responsibilities to help each other. I think the mutuality among the families should be promoted and supported, because in this case we can also act, intervene, solving the concrete needs of the families. Just to give you an example, if we put the responsibility of caring the families, just the state, we have to be also aware of the fact that the state cannot know very well the needs of each families. Much more aware of the needs of each families are, of course, the other families, the network of families to which the family in need participates. So I think that now for the future, we have to hope stronger and also more efficient network of families. And during this pandemic time, what we realize is that the loneliness has been and is the worst sickness of the family. And I think this much more of lack of money, of lack of job, the loneliness, because alone it's very when a family is alone, it's very difficult to solve problems. And only the families that are part of family networks, family association, could be helped to solve their problems. We saw during this, we have seen during this time that the state cannot do everything. And we have to take on also these responsibilities. It's a question of justice, but it's a question also of freedom, because otherwise the state, the welfare state becomes too strong. And if it's too strong, I think that it's also much more difficult for the state to solve the concrete problems of the families.
Indeed. So there is a very interesting question that was posted in the box, was what kind of family policy should be taken by member states or the EU to tackle the demographic winter? I don't know if anybody of the panelists want to answer this question.
I think that it is difficult to respond to these questions because every country is different. So for me, what we are saying as FAFCE is that we do not need any privilege, as I said before. We do not. We just need to take away all the obstacles to allow the family to realize their desires. So, for example, now we need just to award the families who wants to take on responsibility, generating new lives. And for example, one of the biggest obstacles that the families must try to avoid is an unjust tax system. So let's speak much more than tax justice than tax reliefs. because it's just a question of justice. And as I said before, let's promote the freedom of the people who want to create families generating new lives, because now there is a real, a concrete problem of violation of right of motherhood or maternity, because there are so many obstacles everywhere in Europe, and so the people are not encouraged to generate new life, but they are discouraged to generate new life. I think it should be something very easy, because having children is the easiest thing, and now we do all our best to put obstacles. So let's hope to very simple family policies, because this is maybe what we can look for.
Thank you, Mr. Bassi. Benedicta, did you want to talk? And I don't know if Mrs. Sodrova wanted to speak again, or this is an old hand that is still there after.
Yes, thank you. Maybe Maria, I see that Maria, you wanted to maybe answer as well this question. So maybe I will let you first and then ask my question.
Děkuji, Benedikt. Já myslím, že ta demografická zima vytváří právě to, nebo mohla by vytvářet, a doufáme, že nebude vytvářet mezigenerační napětí. A já si myslím, že jsme tady ještě nezmínili tu věc, na které rodiny stojí, a také to, co vlastně bylo teď velkým přínosem v té pandemické situaci. A to bylo to, že se dostali ke slovu vztahy. My jsme zvyklí pořád vnímat, a já mám pořád takový dojem z Evropské unie, že ona to velmi jaksi akcentuje, výkony. A my se tady dostáváme právě v rámci udržitelného vývoje, který bere ohled právě na vztah k přírodě, vztah tady k těmto věcem, že bychom měli i ty mezilidské vztahy dostat do nějakého většího zorného úhlu. A právě ta práce pro rodinu, ta neplacená práce je výrazem právě vztahu. A ten vztah bohužel se těžko měří, váží, tak jako výkony. A to je jeho velká nevýhoda právě v tom klimatu, kdy ta politika zaměstnanosti je vůdčí politikou na úrovni Evropské unie, ale toto klima nasávají i ty národní státy. A tam už to není dobře. To znamená, že by podle mého laického názoru ta Evropská unie ve těch svých doporučeních měla mít vždycky tu doložku, ale s ohledem na rodinnou politiku národního státu. Ona to říká, ale aby taky bylo z toho textu zřejmé, že myslí na ty vztahy. Protože bez těch vztahů ta unie prostě nemůže přežít. Takže děkuji za pozornost.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ujeska. I don't know if anybody wanted to react on this, or I see that nobody has raised their hand. Benedict, you want to ask your question?
I can see that Regina wants
Regina.
to.
Sorry, Regina, please.
Yes, going back to the family policies that work, actually there are there is a big literature that talks about what works to raise natality rates, and especially what deprive it, what brings it back to lower levels. So I for what we have learned through these years, it is important that it is a comprehensive, holistic approach to the problem. Not only one side, one section, but the whole society should be made more family friendly, more children friendly, pro-natalist the whole thing, because it starts from the beginning, from having forming the family, having the right job, having a house, becoming independent from the old family, and then forming another one. There are several support systems. The taxation is definitely important, is one of the most important practical issue. But first, and absolutely fundamental, is the decision. Do we really want to make improvement in under the natality point of view, or we don't care about it? This is the point. If we decide that we have a problem, and I think the climate problem is something we can reward as well. We are living through two different temperatures, the demographic winter and heating of our planet. But the answer should be the same. Let's think of what is really important in life, in our lives, and people's life, and then remove all the obstacles that are making it difficult in order to achieve an economic growth that is not possible. So if we start to think that is, we have to do some changings, and we have seen that it's possible to take very deep, strong, and absolute decisions, like closing up an entire world, as we have done during the pandemic. If we see that these things can be possible, we have to take these decisions. So, but it's the fundamental thing is to take the decision first.
Okay, thank you very much. Benedict, do you want to ask your question very quickly, because we only have 2 minutes left?
Thank you very much, Alaya. Those will be two very short questions, very short, I promise. I wanted to ask to Regina, what kind of work-life balance policies can specifically target large families? If there are any specific needs that need specific and tailored family policies, and maybe just as well, I would ask a very short answer to Victor about this question of, as a follow-up of Mrs. Shedrova question on the experience of fathers, especially during these times of pandemic. Thank you very much.
Do you want to start, Regina?
So
you have 1 minute.
Yes, specific measures, taking into account the number of children, the number of family components. That is the simplest and the most effective one in any kind of policy.
You had some policies, I remember, in the past on VAT, reducing the VAT for like essential products like nappies and things like that. I think this is for everyone needed,
yes,
but if you have more children,
yes. Of course, then there are lots of these kind of things, and then pensions for mothers that have more children or just one children, the bonus, pension bonus, time, the recognition of unpaid work of care. During the pandemic, we had the problem of the devices or the broadband that wasn't enough in houses because, of course, everybody was on the net. But if you always think, or a taxation or a light tax when you pay for your lights or for your water, if you consider that is not only a family, is not a single person, but it's a family with a number of components, and then you have the payment weighted on that number, I think it's a matter of justice, and it's a very good help for families. I hope this is answer you something.
Thank you very much. Yes.
And maybe just start seeing families as just polluters, because okay, 7 people, 7 people, 7 people polluting. And now, for example, in Spain now, since 1st of June, the electricity bill has increased 45%. So imagine a family, a large family that has to pay 45% more of the bill. They already have a big bill. This is just impossible, you know, it's like from one day to another. This
you see, Olala, that drives me crazy because we consider about how polluting are people, and we don't consider how polluting are big oil companies or whatever.
Which are the main contributors to pollution, you know,
yes.
We know who they are. It's not the families, it's really the production level who is much more,
yes,
especially producers of chemicals, plastics. Believe me, I work in that sector.
Yes.
So,
and in fact, this is what we want to show, but letting us be known a little more that sobriety comes very natural in a large family, because of course you can have
resources are scarce.
Yes.
Your other question, Benedict, maybe if you don't, interpreters agree to stay one more minute, just to finish to answer the question, Victor, that Benedict asked, if you don't mind.
Excuse me, can you repeat the question? I haven't heard it well, Benedict.
I just wanted to, yes, thank you. I just wanted to make a follow-up of Mrs. Shedrova's questions that she mentioned to you. How was your experience as well as father during the lockdown and the pandemic, and how you spoke about the need to invest them? And I'm sorry if it's a personal question, but since you have a concrete and field experience, I thought you might have been interested to have a few highlights very quickly. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that one of my experiences, as you have said, is that we as parents, we have realized that to appreciate more the work made by teachers. I mean, I think that one of the most important things at this moment is that parents and teachers have started to really appreciate more the work that the other was doing. But also in my experience in this relation with teachers, we have realized that the schools that work in the past, in order to build a strong learning community, have been more successful to cope with the current difficulties. So I think that one of the key factors in this situation and for the future is to be able to build a strong, a resilient learning community at each school. I think this will be important to cope with the future difficulties. So in this sense, I think that the more parents identify with the school educational projects are, and the better they know it, the more effective the support they can give their children from home. This has been my experience in my school, because we have been working quite a lot throughout the years with teachers. And I think that this experience should be implemented also in other schools.
Thank you very much, Mr. Petulla. So now we have the final remarks by Mr. Morgano, National Secretary of the Italian Federation of Preschools, who was a former MEP. Mr. Morgano, please.
Allora, grazie della possibilità di poter intervenire a questo lavoro. Innanzitutto ringrazio la FAFCE nella persona del presidente Vincenzo Bassi e in particolare la dottoressa Benedict Collin, che si è molto impegnata, lo sappiamo tutti, nell'organizzazione di questo evento. Senza di lei questo incontro probabilmente non si sarebbe potuto verificare. Grazie davvero. Poi un sentito ringraziamento anche agli onorevoli Alexander Vondra e a Michaela Soyodrova, che ho rivisto davvero volentieri con molto piacere oggi. Abbiamo lavorato per 5 anni assieme nella stessa commissione e ci siamo ritrovati, al di là dell'appartenenza ai gruppi politici, esattamente sulle questioni che oggi sono state oggetto dell'incontro stesso. Io non ho certamente la pretesa di trarre conclusioni, anche se così sta scritto nel programma. Però mi permetto di richiamare, avendo seguito queste 2 ore di lavoro, alcuni aspetti come sottolineatura, senza certamente la pretesa di esaurire ciò che è stato detto con grande puntualità e con grande precisione. Innanzitutto con il contributo dei deputati europei, da un lato, e quello appunto di importanti rappresentanti della società civile, e pare che la discussione di oggi sia stata molto opportuna, approfondita, e il tema dell'equilibrio tra lavoro e vita familiare dei genitori e poi anche degli ostacoli che devono essere affrontati sia emersa con molta chiarezza. La introduzione presentata da Benedicte Colin è stata al centro davvero degli scambi di oggi e ci aiuta a rispondere un po' alla domanda che il presidente Bassi aveva posto all'inizio, che almeno io credo di poter riassumere così: che spazio diamo ai genitori di essere genitori? E così anche alle famiglie di essere famiglie. Ovviamente guardiamo la situazione europea, dove siamo noi oggi. E in maniera anche molto puntuale, anche altri interventi hanno evidenziato che c'è un ulteriore quesito. A livello europeo stiamo mettendo la stessa cura per i lavoratori rispetto a quella che dedichiamo per la famiglia? Fuori di metafora. È più importante conciliare il lavoro o trovare una conciliazione che tenga altrettanto, almeno sullo stesso piano, il tema della famiglia? Credo che alla luce dell'incontro di oggi la risposta è quella che è stata evidenziata di presenza ancora di molte contraddizioni. Di fatto c'è una società che riconosce sicuramente gli affetti, l'amore, la famiglia, diciamo, come normalmente viene percepita nella realtà nostra. Ma poi troppo spesso abbiamo altri problemi che privilegiano la dimensione individuale e che contrasta questa dimensione individuale con la questione invece familiare. E quindi la domanda che ne deriva è: ma che spazio c'è in una situazione culturale di questo genere per la generatività? Perché il problema che riguarda l'inverno demografico è sicuramente un problema di politiche familiari, di scelte che vengono fatte, ma dietro c'è una questione di fondo che è quella culturale. Giustamente in questa sede la diamo per acquisita, ma credo che nelle sedi istituzionali l'argomento non possa non essere riproposto con forza. E lo dico perché oggi molte piste le avete messe in campo nei vostri interventi. E quindi il problema duplice è che cosa si può fare a livello istituzionale, quindi il riferimento in questo caso alle istituzioni europee, al di là delle competenze proprie di ogni singolo paese con le diversità che sono state ricordate, e dall'altra parte sul livello prettamente associativo, cioè quello che ci appartiene. Io faccio un cenno, consentitemi, visto che ho una qualche responsabilità italiana su una tematica che riguarda la FISME. Nel nostro paese noi abbiamo posto un mese fa in Italia, abbiamo promosso una petizione ovviamente che chiede alle persone di sottoscriverla per porre al nostro legislatore un preciso quesito, anche alla luce di quello che è stato deciso a livello europeo e della sottolineatura dell'importanza decisiva dell'infanzia rispetto allo sviluppo della persona, e cioè con l'ottica di prima i bambini, non quindi i bambini subordinati ad esigenze di altro tipo. Chiediamo che cosa? Gratuità e parità di trattamento per tutta l'infanzia, sia per i servizi educativi, sia per la scuola dell'infanzia. Abbiamo una certa forza, è vero, abbiamo 9.000 realtà che sono associate tra scuola dell'infanzia e servizi educativi, quasi 500.000 di bambini frequentanti, 40.000 dipendenti che lavorano in queste istituzioni. Noi, devo dirvi, circa un mesetto per ora abbiamo raccolto molto velocemente, senza fare nulla di straordinario, 150.000 firme già acquisite. Perché lo accenno questo? Perché io sono convinto che in un contesto come quello che siamo oggi ci sia bisogno di avere una consapevolezza. Le istituzioni vanno anche sollecitate, e lo dico avendo fatto anche attività politica, quindi avendo fatto anche il parlamentare europeo. Le istituzioni vanno sollecitate, e vanno sollecitate anche con iniziative che partono dalla società civile. Del resto, oggi come oggi, le petizioni al Parlamento anche europeo, piuttosto che alla Commissione, direi perché non utilizzarle laddove siamo in grado di farlo. Perché dico questo? Perché su questi temi, secondo me, lo sforzo per arrivare ad una sintesi propositiva non solo lo state compiendo, lo stiamo compiendo, ma mi pare che si allarghi la consapevolezza che non può essere relegato come problema di seconda rilevanza. E questo non solo per la sfida contro il decremento demografico, ma esattamente perché questa situazione di fatto disegna il presente e il futuro della stessa Unione Europea e quindi della presenza della stessa Europa. Qui avete messo in evidenza con molta puntualità appunto le nuove forme di lavoro che possono essere messe in campo per le madri attraverso il telelavoro, ma anche attraverso la flessibilità. Tra l'altro devo dire che la pandemia diciamo, ha creato un mare di problemi, non c'è dubbio, e li sta creando tuttora, però ha evidenziato come ci si può essere un modo di collegare queste scelte anche ad una situazione operativamente sostenibile, e quindi il lavoro digitale, il lavoro da casa è compatibile con la flessibilità anche per una presenza della donna che sceglie appunto anche di lavorare o è costretta a farlo per esigenze di bilancio familiare, perché anche questi sono problemi reali per ora, e quindi per arrivare ad una sintesi. Allora, in questo senso credo che abbia ragione Michaela quando ha ricordato, se ho correttamente riportato il suo pensiero, che quando si affrontano i temi dei bambini, l'Unione Europea non deve dimenticare la famiglia, i genitori e il sostegno ai genitori in quanto genitori. Quindi la politica dell'Unione Europea non deve separare un bambino dai suoi genitori e non deve contrapporre la possibilità, la volontà di avere figli con il lavoro. L'avete anche detto voi, le difficoltà a volte sono ostative, sono insuperabili. Quindi, sotto questo punto di vista, credo che spazi anche di altro tipo possiamo percorrerli. La conciliazione tra lavoro e vita familiare è uno dei temi, ad esempio, del cosiddetto quarto pilastro dell'Unione Europea, quello che riguarda proprio la problematica sociale. Il congedo di paternità anche al di là delle diversità finora messe in campo, perché la legislazione è nazionale, anche qui comunque ha trovato uno spazio, un posto e un voto da parte del Parlamento molto più avanzato di quello che la Commissione era in grado di proporre e degli Stati membri col Consiglio di attivare. Cioè, perché cito queste cose? Perché credo che noi dobbiamo aprire spazi con iniziative da parte della società civile rispetto alle istituzioni. Quindi, certo, dietro questa questione ci stanno anche le difficoltà che giustamente sono state ricordate. Il lavoro precario, come ha ricordato anche Zullo, la precarietà economica, che insomma, quando c'è sostanzialmente una condizione di difficoltà di un certo tipo e c'è instabilità e incertezza sul futuro, i problemi aumentano. E qui stiamo commettendo certamente un errore, perché continuiamo a spostare nel tempo diciamo, l'opportunità che viene offerta effettivamente ai giovani di fare scelte in età adeguata. Certo, sono state compiute di recente delle scelte di altra natura, cioè l'aiuto economico dato ai vari paesi in maniera significativa attraverso il recovery plan, la new generation, eccetera. Sono tutti però temi a questo punto che possiamo cavalcare contestualmente. Poi, ecco, non vorrei andare molto in là, ma qualche aspetto credo che sia rilevante. Insomma, quando noi parliamo di istituzioni, bisogna che ricordiamo che la vita di ciascuno di noi non è fatta solo nella dimensione individuale, ma anche in tutte le formazioni sociali in cui conduciamo davvero la nostra vita. E quali sono quelle? La famiglia, l'attività lavorativa laddove ci siamo, l'organizzazione sindacale se ci apparteniamo, la forza politica, ma anche tutte le associazioni di volontariato e non solo volontariato, di opinione pubblica sotto questo punto di vista. Mi pare importante, lo ringrazio anche personalmente, quello che ha ricordato il presidente dell'Associazione Europea dei Genitori, Victor Petuia, sul ruolo dei padri e sul bisogno di rafforzare la presenza dei padri nell'ambito appunto della propria realtà familiare. E vado verso la conclusione guardando rapidissimamente l'orologio con 2 o 3 ulteriori sottolineature. La prima riguarda la vicepresidente Marie, il cognome faccio fatica a pronunciarlo nel linguaggio, non vorrei dirlo male, quindi la vicepresidente dell'Associazione Nazionale Ceca, che ha giustamente ricordato la valenza pubblica delle responsabilità familiari. E come anche Regina Maroncelli, presidente dell'ELFAC, che così non in maniera provocatoria, ma per costringere a cominciare a cambiare anche prospettiva, che ha detto nel suo intervento, l'ha ripreso in un paio di circostanze, che il mercato del lavoro non può ignorare la famiglia. E al contrario, rispetto alla condizione odierna, dovrebbe essere il mercato del lavoro che fa passi per considerare adeguatamente la presenza della famiglia e non viceversa, quindi che non sia ostativo sotto questo punto di vista. Quindi mi è parso davvero, dal mio punto di vista, un ottimo incontro, per quello che posso dire, anche perché questa conferenza, questo incontro nostro si colloca nella conferenza sul futuro dell'Europa, e credo che c'è bisogno di riprendere temi di fondo che riguardano proprio il disegno sul presente e sul futuro dell'Europa. E certe questioni sono non rinunciabili, cioè vanno messe in campo. Del resto, credo che possiamo convenire che spesso si parla della libertà di scelta della donna, oggi anche un po' troppo sul piano, diciamo, rivendicativo per certi aspetti.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Morgano. It's 3:10, and I think that we have to conclude. If you don't mind saying your last remarks, so then the interpreters can be freed and everybody can continue with their activities. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Posso concludere ancora mezza parola, sì? Perfetto, grazie. Solo per ricordare sotto questo punto di vista che qual è l'ostacolo maggiore alla libertà se non quello che impedisce alla volontà di una donna di avere dei figli. E lo dico dicendo anche che anche il tema dell'educazione, di cui oggi ovviamente non è che si possa parlare di tutto, ma è strettamente legato a questo, perché avere figli è un conto, ma l'educazione è l'aspetto fondamentale che attiene anche ai genitori, in primo luogo alla famiglia. Se rinunciamo a questo, anche qui andiamo verso rischi di natura culturale molto pesanti. E concludo dicendo, se me lo consentite, citando Papa Francesco, perché il 14 maggio, quindi pochi giorni fa, ha aperto gli stati generali della natalità nel nostro paese e ha ricordato che se le famiglie non sono al centro del presente, non ci sarà futuro. Se le famiglie ripartono, tutto riparte. Quindi grazie davvero di questa opportunità per quanto mi riguarda. Come federazione facciamo parte della FAFCE, quindi lo facciamo molto così convintamente. La nostra specificità è ovviamente più quella di ordine strettamente educativo, cioè servizi e scuola dell'infanzia, che affianca la famiglia in una alleanza educativa per l'educazione dei figli. E in questo contesto, diciamo, possiamo dare, per quel che ritenete, il nostro appoggio, la nostra elaborazione, che ovviamente va valutata, va definita, e si tratta di capire che cosa possiamo mettere anche in campo operativamente, come ho fatto cenno prima, anche rispetto ad iniziative che riguardano sia il Parlamento europeo sia la Commissione europea. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morgano, for these last words. I think the quote was very inspiring. It's like maybe it's like the Pope was thinking that we were doing this seminar and was preparing a quote for us. So thank you for all the panelists and all the people who have attended. I counted 75 participants, I think, in the highest point. So that's a lot of people, plus the Facebook Live. Thank you very much. There will be a press release drafted and sent tomorrow. So you will get that in your email. And yes, of course, continue following the activities of FAFCE and the things that you're doing. And thank you very much for attending.